Because of COVID, we're thinking a lot about the topic of death. Daily, we see death counts reported. So I figured my column this week should actually look at death data in Australia. The first good news is about COVID-related deaths. We see 35 times fewer deaths per 1 million residents in Australia than we are in the US, than we are in Europe. So those super annoying lockdowns at least do the trick in saving lives. So that's good news. But what about the seasonality of death? There's a clear pattern throughout the year. In the cold winter months, you're much more likely to die. I think this is because it's harder to hang on to life if everything is bleak. Whereas in the warm summer month, particularly around Christmas, we have much fewer deaths per day recorded. So Santa Claus doesn't only bring gifts for under the Christmas tree, but he also brings the gift of life, it appears. That's wonderful news. What about the kind of deaths that have been up and down during the pandemic? Well, at the start we feared that we were going to see much more deaths by suicide. Thankfully, this didn't eventuate. And I think this is due to a reverse self-fulfilling prophecy, where simply because we talked so much about suicide, there was a lot of awareness. And there is, of course, the pattern of increased spending on suicide prevention. And there's this feeling of we are all in this together. So in your suffering, because everyone is in lockdown, you don't feel left alone. So that's great news. Same trend is to see in deaths by drug overdose. Much fewer that are recorded this year. That's probably simply because there are fewer opportunities to take drugs, fewer music festivals, fewer nights out, and of course the global supply chain issues also impact drug trade. So these deaths are down. So that's great news. The one category of deaths that are on the up are alcohol related. And that is a sad news story because, of course, it is one way of coping with a difficult situation that too many people jump to. And so that's an issue that does need more public attention. What about the life cycle of death? There is, of course, the older you get, the more likely you are to die. With the one exception of infants. A very sad story or fact of life is that as an infant in your first year of life, you are very likely to die, or relatively likely to die. And once you go through the first year, once you live through the first year, you have 5 decades of, very low likelihoods of dying until you reach 54. At 54, you're just as likely to die as an infant is, and then the chances only go up that you actually die. So these are just a couple of main data points about death that I collected in my column this week. So please have a read if you want to read more about this.